Have you ever felt like you're living on autopilot? Waking up to the same routine, chasing deadlines, chasing approval, chasing anything that might distract you from the quiet ache inside. You tick all the boxes. You're doing well, but it still feels empty. Not broken, not catastrophic, just hollow. Like your life has become a series of tasks and transactions. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking why. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's what most of us are doing, avoiding the confrontation with what truly matters. We numb with busyness, we distract with achievement, we trade meaning for momentum, because it's easier to perform a life than to live one. But the discomfort doesn't go away. It lingers beneath the surface, whispering that you're off course, that this isn't it, that you're wasting something sacred. And you are. You're wasting the call of your own soul. The soul doesn't scream. It doesn't knock down your door. It waits. And if you don't answer, it dims. Not out of punishment, but protection, because you weren't listening. And so the first sign isn't pain, it's numbness, disconnection, a quiet sense that you're missing something essential, even if you can't name it. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need to try harder. You need to wake up, to remember that your life is not a checklist, it's a question. And how you answer it is everything. Most people don't waste their lives through reckless decisions. They waste them through slow forgetting, through unconscious compromise, through the quiet erosion of what once lit them up. At some point, you stopped listening to your inner voice. You traded intuition for instruction, passion for predictability, and the wildness of your own becoming for the comfort of being liked. But here's what Jung knew. The soul has its own rhythm. It doesn't move in straight lines. It doesn't obey the logic of the world. It grows underground, through symbols, through dreams, through quiet compulsions you don't understand. That restlessness you feel, that urge to escape, to quit, to scream into the void. It isn't random. It's a signal. The psyche doesn't break down without purpose. It breaks open. What looks like anxiety may be misalignment. What you call depression might be disconnection from your inner world. What you label as laziness could be your soul refusing to participate in something false, because deep down, something in you knows you were not born just to be efficient. You were not born to only meet expectations. You were born to individuate, to become who you really are. But here's the tragedy. Most people never get there, because the process is terrifying. Individuation is not self-improvement. It's self-confrontation. It means facing the shadow, the parts of yourself you've buried because they were inconvenient, unacceptable, or painful. It means realizing that the person you've been is not the person you were meant to be. And this is where the real work begins. Not in doing more, but in undoing what was never really you. You can't stop wasting your life until you face what you've been hiding from. Not out there, in here. Because what keeps you stuck isn't a lack of potential. It's a refusal to meet the parts of yourself you were taught to reject. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the denied, disowned, exiled parts of your psyche. Your anger, your grief, your jealousy, your hunger, your brilliance, your truth. The things you buried to survive. The parts of you that didn't fit the version of you others wanted. You weren't allowed to be too much. So you became small, You weren't allowed to be sad. So you became numb. You weren't allowed to need. So you became self-sufficient to the point of isolation. And now you walk through life wearing a mask, smiling, performing, coping. But deep underneath, you feel like a ghost in your own story. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your unmet self, the one still waiting for you to return. And the longer you avoid it, the more life begins to feel like a performance. You go through the motions. You say what you're supposed to. You smile when you're dying inside. But here's the truth. The pain you're carrying isn't weakness. It's a doorway. The moment you stop running from your shadow, you begin to reclaim your life. You begin to feel again, to want again, to become again. And it's messy. It's not glamorous. It's not quick. But it's real. And for the first time, so are you. Because you can't create a meaningful life while rejecting the parts of you that crave meaning. You must go down, into the dark, to come back up, into the light. Something happens the moment you stop pretending. The masks begin to crack. The old stories lose their grip. And what rises from beneath the wreckage isn't a new version of you. It's the original one. The one who was buried beneath the roles, the rules, the trauma, the shame. The one who was always there, but forgotten. This is the real self, not the polished persona, not the you learn to perform, but the ancient self, the wild self, the soul in its raw, unedited form. And once it begins to wake up, everything changes. You can no longer tolerate small talk that drains your spirit. You start craving silence over noise, truth over comfort, solitude over performance. Your sensitivity deepens, your intuition sharpens, and suddenly, you begin to feel your life again. Not just survive it. Because you are no longer living for approval. You are no longer outsourcing your worth. You are coming home. And it's strange. It's unfamiliar. You've spent so long being someone else that authenticity feels like rebellion. But you realize something. The life you're leaving behind was never really yours. It was built for survival, not for joy. And now that you see it for what it is, you can no longer return. Carl Jung said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that's what you're doing. You're remembering, reclaiming, rebuilding, from the inside out. Not the life they told you to want, but the life that wants you back. There is a moment in every awakening where the ground gives way. You thought becoming yourself would feel like freedom. But first, it feels like falling. Falling away from the roles you mastered. Falling away from the people who only knew the mask. Falling away from the systems, the routines, the relationships that once made you feel safe, even as they made you feel small. It's disorienting. You question everything. Your career, your friendships, even your memories. What was real? What was performance? Who did I become to be loved? And underneath all that questioning, a deeper grief sets in. Because you realize you've been missing from your own life. Not just for weeks, for years. That's what Jung called the midlife crisis. But it's not about age, it's about awakening. It's when the persona you built can no longer contain the soul you buried. And so, it cracks. You stop laughing at what doesn't feel funny. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop betraying your body, your instincts, your voice. But here's the truth. Most people turn back. They feel the emptiness and call it a breakdown. They reach for what's familiar, even if it's lifeless, even if it's killing them quietly. Because awakening is not glamorous. It's lonely, it's raw, it's inconvenient. You'll outgrow people. You'll be accused of changing. You'll miss the version of yourself that everyone else adored, but who you no longer recognize. And you'll be tempted to go back to autopilot, back to the sleepwalk, back to who you were before the soul started speaking again. But don't. Because that grief you feel, that emptiness, it's not the end of your life, it's the beginning of your real one. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You are seeing clearly now. You are standing at the threshold between illusion and reality, between who you were told to be and who you truly are. Don't waste that. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone is meant to. This path, the path of soul, of depth, of truth, was never meant for the masses. It was meant for the ones who choose it. And if you're still here, listening, then maybe that means you don't need a new version of yourself. You need to remember the one you lost, the one who used to wonder, who moved through life with curiosity instead of control, who didn't measure time in productivity or performance, but in moments that felt true. This is what Jung meant by individuation, the lifelong unfolding of the soul, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about finding the parts you exiled, welcoming them home, letting them speak. And in doing so, something extraordinary happens. You stop running. You stop outsourcing your joy. You stop waiting for permission to live. You start listening to your body, your gut, your art, your longing. You stop asking, what should I be doing? And start asking, what is life trying to become through me? You stop wasting your life when you stop trying to win a game you were never meant to play. You weren't born to just manage tasks, pay bills, chase applause, and die. You were born to feel, to create, to hurt, to rise, to experience the full catastrophe of being human. Carl Jung didn't promise comfort, he promised depth, and in that depth, you reclaim everything they said was too much. Your fire, your tenderness, your knowing, your voice, and finally, your time. Because that's what you've been spending, isn't it? Minutes, hours, years, performing, pretending, surviving. But now you see it. Life is not something you chase. It's something you allow. It's not about more effort. It's about less resistance, about subtracting everything false until only the real remains. You don't need a radical reinvention. You need a radical remembrance, a return to soul, to meaning, to presence, to the sacred art of living consciously, fully awake. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Close the gap, make the call, end the chapter, begin again. Not someday, not when you feel ready. Now. Because this moment, this breath, is the only life you are guaranteed. The question is no longer, what should I do with my time? The question is, what would my soul do if I finally gave it the reins?